If you're listening on the podcast, be sure to jump back to the previous episode to listen to the first half of this conversation. Come back here for part 2.
Welcome to the Building Doctor Show with Jens Johansson.
All right, some alternate testing. Tell us about this steel column and what we're doing there with the little diodes and electrical gadgets.
Yeah, so what is happening in these pictures is called ultrasonic testing. And basically what we were concerned with on this project was the primary support of these triple stack DACs, right, 3 stories high, was with these 4x4 steel columns. And we didn't really have good design. We verified that they were 4x4 by 1/4 inch thick steel, but we wanted to see, based on the corrosion, was the cross-sectional area of that structural member deteriorated, and could we measure that? And so
instead of 1/4 inch thick like it's supposed to be, has it whittled down to 1/8 inch or
exactly.
Even you can see the holes on the left side.
Yep. So they have a device that they can basically send an electrical signal through, and they can kind of measure the depth of that corrosion. We do actually, have to do a little grinding on it to try to like unearth bare, clean, bright steel, and then
grinding off the paint, couple layers of paint, get to rusty pitted stuff. If you've ever done any body work on cars, you'll know what we're doing here. But you get down to shiny metal. But then you see pitting, and then over here it looks like holes.
Yeah. So when you see that corrosion continue all the way through into the member, we stop and we say, hey, let's get some shoring posts under there. But what we were attempting to do, ultimately, how easy is it to come in and say, rip it out, replace it? We can do a little bit of testing on the front end and say, you know what? This thing's whittled down to 1/8 of an inch. We can model it at 1/8 of an inch and see if it calcs out. If it does, we're going to save that steel. But, so to spend a little money on the front end, do a little analysis, maybe we can save, maybe we can't. In this instance, we started plowing through the whole entire member, so we stopped pretty quick. But we did verify that on the east elevation, we were able to salvage those posts and do a little targeted repairs, as opposed to the complete overhaul we had to go forward with on the west elevation.
Right. And that's one of the things we also did underwater on these piling jobs where they had steel piles. And so we worked with divers to go down, and they'd scrape the pile and try to get down to bare metal. And then they'd do that ultrasonic testing. And we found that we had 20% of the piling left. And so they have rehabilitation strategies of either lining the pile or putting it in the bag and filling in concrete and different things. But we can do this testing underwater as well. But basically, let's see what's under this paint. And in this case, the steel is probably rusting from the inside out. You just get those humid conditions, and it just goes. It's like a cancer in the steel. But you can see the pouring down rain. You see the surf not too far away, and this is what we're talking about today. So, some considerations for working on the coast. So we've talked about the damages we see, but you also have to think about construction setbacks. And so for existing buildings, you're typically grandfathered in. But if you try to change that building too much, the local building authority may kind of say you can't add on to that, or you can't remodel it. Or if it burns down to the ground, we're not going to let you rebuild it. And so there's some things you have to think about for setbacks, meaning protecting the wildlife, but also, maybe it wasn't such a great idea to build out over the water like we thought in the 60s or something, that kind of stuff. So it's a way for the building code to start kind of changing their mind a little bit and saying, we don't want to build there, so we're not going to let you rebuild. So that's some of the things we work with the building authority with when we're working on your building. So seismic design category, we talked a little bit about footings and being on sand or mud or, some kind of clay, or, if that liquefies and turns into problems during an earthquake. So we have additional seismic things to think about. Of course, we have the exposure. So we've got the wind. So that's affecting your cladding and your roof and just all sorts of things, and the salt and sand and all that jazz. And then temperature. We've talked some about that. But typically have a milder temperature on the coast, but not always. So, and then other things we're thinking about, just again, that buffer zone. The need for seawalls or repairing those seawalls and redoing them, reducing damage to beachfront property during high wave events. So what kind of things can we design into your repair process? Of course, everybody's concerned about views and access. The building lots along the waterfront typically run into the water. And so you'll have a 200-foot lot, and 120 of it is sand and beach, and 80 of it's water. So harvesting your own, seashells and things like that, it's your property. But what do we get on beaches? We get front walkway promenades. We get the beach's public space. We get, kind of that conflict of private property versus shorefront or, city center. It's beautiful. We want to play on the beach. Can't we just build sand castles with the J2 bucket giveaway that we're going to do? But you get kind of this friction between property owners. Hey, get off my land. Or beachfront, hey, this is public property. It's a beach. I want to use it. So these are things we're helping you work through as we're doing this. And just the privacy, again, that privacy or that personal enjoyment of, I want to sit out on my deck and not be on a walking path. Other things we're thinking about, we talked a little bit about contractor pool. Oftentimes some of these beach areas, they started out as, hey, this was kind of my escape. This was my second home down on a little small town. And over, 50 years, every beachfront property has blossomed into, bigger and bigger communities. But there's typically a limited or a more limited contractor pool because they are far out there. They are harder to access, or they also just have, hey, Chuck, he's done all the beach work here for the last 20 years and we want to give it to Chuck. It's like, well, this is the rust and the rot and the stuff we're fixing. So I hope Chuck didn't do that. But anyway, so there's a little bit of that. There's also some insurance pieces. Some of the contractors need special insurance, or depending on what, their insurance company says, thou shalt not work on over water access buildings, or, sometimes there's some insurance restrictions that we have to help you walk through with. So we talked a little bit about escape versus boomtown. Some of these properties we run into a lot they're my second home. It's my second thing. I don't really think about it. I'm not there to wipe things down. I'm not there to take care of it. Or it was my parents. I inherited it. I don't want to sell it. It's a wonderful thing to keep in the family, but it's not my daily, so to speak. And so I'm not there every day. And so there's a little bit of helping people understand that we need to measure this and watch it and keep an eye on it. Is there any other kind of coastal considerations you'd add, James?
Yeah, I mean, I think just accounting for the fact that we know it's going to get wet, right? So the way we designed, I mean, like you said, these things that were built in the 60s, hey, you can limp along for a long time. But just like our infrastructure as a nation, right, is kind of getting to the point where, you know what, we can only patch and paint so many times. Now we got to start thinking about doing an overhaul. And what are we going to do when we do an overhaul? We're going to think about all of the knowledge we've acquired with respects to building science, rain screen assemblies, these things to design for water to get in, but a place for it to go. Those kind of things we start thinking about. give it another 50 years of life to your buildings. But you know, you get to a point where you can only patch and paint so long, and it's kind of time, you know. So you know.
And that's some of those photos. That aluminum window didn't rust out overnight, but you know, it getting just hammered. Or that steel column is now finally rusting through. And how old was that building with the ultrasonic testing, the steel column we talked
And
about?
yeah, built in the 60s, you know,
Yeah.
mid 60s.
So 55 years old. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah. But the beams, the wood beams that are sitting in those buckets have been replaced probably 2 or 3 times over the course of that because of the exposure, right? And the fact that we aren't, you know, they're sitting in there and they're sucking water, and it's like, cool, Chuck replaced them. But, you know, so those are the kind of things where, you know, you implement good weatherization details, good breathing, allow a place for that water to escape. And now you can start talking about, you know, withstanding. Unfortunately, we don't, you know, build things like we used to, right? The materials and everything, but, you know, I don't know.
we're getting you on a rampage. Okay, let's talk about kind of the last coastal consideration. We hinted at it a little bit, liquefiable soils. And so when enough motion or enough water and flooding and things like that, turning your soil just kind of turns it into jello and turns it into a slippery kind of mess. And so we get a lot of questions about earthquakes and how do we prepare for earthquakes. And definitely this you know, struck a bell of coastal properties. You know, that's kind of how if you have mountains along the coast, that's the two tectonic plates colliding and making a mountain range. And so up and down the, you know, California coast, we know we have some fault lines. And so it's something to consider. And so the liquefiable soils, we don't want our soils to turn into jello and our building to move around. And actually, we have some interesting. We've been working with a PhD doctor in the University of Oregon. What's his name? Portland State, and his whole focus is how to prevent soil liquefaction and stabilize the soil. And he's doing it pretty, you know, neat. It's not really bug poop, but it's kind of a microbiome that we can inject into the soil, and their byproduct is actually kind of like concrete pellets, and it actually reinforces the soil. And he's having some success with bigger projects and bigger studies of we can seed the soil with microbiomes, and after a while it changes the soil density and prevents this liquefiable soil condition. So it's a natural really cool thing. So we'll have another episode on earthquakes, and maybe we can get him to talk to us about that. All right. So is any of this making sense? Salty? If you want to be salty, give me a call. So you can reach me at jensj@j2consultants.com, or you can go to this link, learn.j2consultants.com/consultant on call, and have a free 15-minute call with me. All right, we're getting into the Q&A. We had a few previously submitted questions, and so kind of that, you know, along those lines of how do I clean my windows, decks, steel for this salt water corrosion? And we've talked about it a little bit. It's just common method for cleaning windows at the coast is to mix equal parts white vinegar and water in a spray bottle. And it can dissolve and remove salt staining after about 5 minutes. But most manufacturers say soap and water and a soft bristled brush. And so what would you add to that, James?
Yeah, I mean, with respects to cleaning a surface like a coating that's provided by a manufacturer, I would stick to the manufacturer's recommendations, right? So any project that you have had completed, you're probably going to have an O&M manual, and that's going to tell you, hey, yes, use vinegar. don't use simple green or whatever, so be very careful about solvents, about the things you pick up at Home Depot and just throw on there. And the Miracle washers, make sure that it's recommended per your manufacturer. And then, with respects to like the salt in the track, things like that. I mean, shop vac, get that stuff out of there, wipe it down, a wet rag, nothing hurts, with a wet rag.
Right.
But just make sure that you're not putting anything, solvents or any chemicals that are going to have an impact on your warranties or anything like that.
Yeah. All right, next question. Tips on maintenance. Our tips are basically double it. So if you're doing just a spring cleaning, do a spring and fall cleaning. Basically, think about it of just, I gotta clean it and wipe it down twice as much as I thought, or I have to inspect my sealants twice as often, or I've got to inspect my roof for seashells and crab parts and bird nests once a year instead of twice a year. Or, I got to check my downspouts and make sure there's no seagulls in the nesting in the collection boxes and things like that. And so it's just really, you got to get after it. You got to put that in your budget line item. It's not saying you have double the repairs, saying you have double the maintenance and inspection. And by doubling this cleaning, you will reduce it's just like dentistry. By increasing your cleanings, you'll reduce your cavities. And so just increase your cleaning budget. It's not that expensive. And, lots of education about it, lots of talking about it with your residents, and that will reduce your overall damage and things like that. So next question, we got a good one. So when work and materials are warranted, they usually say for 20 years or for 10 years, depending on a deck membrane or roof shingle. Is there a caveat on warranties that says under normal circumstances, or not along the coastline, or things like that? And can the warranties be modified to be environmental specific? So James, you reached out to a couple of manufacturers. What did they say? And I can.
Yeah. So I did. I reached out to 4 different product reps, manufacturers reps for waterproofing companies, roofing companies, so kind of an array of industries that we work with. And, there are different types of warranties, many different types of warranties. With respects to 20 years versus 10 years, both are possible, right? So there are things to discuss on the front end. There's really no distinction, and this is across the board, no distinction between geographic locations really in their warranties. So, oh, you're on the coast, sorry, this doesn't apply to you guys. They really don't discriminate based on your geographical location. And then I guess the message that they were all kind of relaying to me is, on the front end of your project, be in contact with a manufacturer. And I'm not going to ring the consultant bell of why you should be working with J2, but really in our specifications, in the submittal process, right, we are getting those sample warranty letters. We're getting those assembly letters from those manufacturers. And that's where the manufacturer can say, hey, I was involved on the front end. This is the products that are going down. We're aware of the contractor that's going to be applying it. We're going to have our tech reps on site documenting and providing those letters saying, yep, your installation's looking good. And then you're going to be presented with that pristine warranty letter at the end of the project, and not, what? Why did you call us on the 8th month, the day before you're supposed to start applying it? No, get involved on the front end. And that's one of the things, that we are involved with is, bringing the contractor manufacturer together and making sure you guys can acquire those things. So I have answers. Let's see, what else do we have? Are warranties modified to be environment specific? That was the gist, the meat and potatoes of what they all kind of chimed in on and harmonized on.
They're trying to sell their product nationwide. And so they usually don't get into a bunch of different warranty provisions, non-oceanfront or oceanfront or things like that. And they usually stick by their 20 years or 10 years. Now, in that metal siding example, there is, that was Corten metal. And you can go to Corten's website, and it, 2 pages, and on the second page, it says you should not use this in salt-laden air, near the ocean, where areas of high mist or, cloud cover and things like that. It's really made for dry desert that gets a little bit of rain on it, but gets a lot of sun to just kind of bake in that rust layer and make it a protective coating, as opposed to something that's always getting wet, maybe even with salt-laden air. So in their specific package, it was like, look, the manufacturer says that. So then we'll jump over to the manufacturer's rep, again, sending them an email and saying, hey, what's going on? And they emailed back and said, yeah, you can use it, but you just won't get the number of years that, if you, it won't last you 20 years. And we specifically told you not to use it in those conditions. You can still use it, but it's probably going to last you 12 or 8 or something. But you could see that metal siding pitting and just getting full of rust holes eventually.
In the same sense, it's like they can put in special riders into a warranty letter based on specific situations. So the key is, discuss it on the front end, right? So the contract, the contractor consultant go, hey, we're out here on the coast. And then the manufacturer might go, you know what, use this type of stainless steel and abrade it to this level. And then they put that rider in, and it's kind of like, so basically, they have their generic boilerplate language, but ultimately things can be discussed, what works, what we've seen work, yada, yada, yada. So,
yep. Okay. The next question, my association will be purchasing hundreds of thousands of dollars of work and materials, and I'd like to know specifically what the warranties will be. Are standard warranty clauses ever modified? So similar type thing. And they usually don't modify, the big corporate warranty provision. These big companies with big buildings have big groups of lawyers that write the warranty provisions, but they can, like James was saying, they can up them, or they can put in a little bit of rider situation. Hey, I understand what you're doing. You're working with a good consultant. Here's some input. We can get you 25 years instead of 20. And so that they won't modify that baseline, but they will upsell. And it's kind of part of the sales process. Maybe there's a little bit more expensive to get 5 more years or something like that. And so in these coastal environments, they're definitely worth the money. System warranties are another thing to think about. And what we mean by that is several products that go into a system. So you'll hear us talk about weather-resistant barrier systems. Well, that's your building paper, your Tyvek, and then your Tyvek tape, and then your Tyvek approved sealant, and then your, this, that, and the other thing. 5 or 6 conditions, all under one manufacturer, and they all work together. So you're getting a system warranty, and maybe even a kind of an extra little insurance policy, an NDL, no dollar limit warranty, where they'll also pay for the damage, as opposed to just, here's a new window, have fun installing it. They'll pay for the water damage caused by the leaking window. So
yeah, actually, I've a true story. On a coastal project, we just got done with a full re-roof, and the manufacturer provided a 20-year NDL warranty. That means on the 19th year and the 360th day, if something fails, not only will they give you the material cost, but they will pay for the labor to fix it. So we had to, on the front end of that project, have a very specific assembly letter approved by the manufacturer. We had sample warranty letters on the front end before projects kicked off. They were involved along the process, checking off punch lists, providing reports, and then we achieved that letter. And I'm very proud of that letter, but it takes work to get it. And it's not always as easy as it's chalked up to be. So
yes, and it's just important to be aware of them up front and through the project, and at closeout, to get that binder full of those warranty checkoff letters, and not just, because, hey, let's face it, they try to get out of it if they can. And if you didn't follow step 3 out of 7 steps, you might have an issue. So that's a value to have us working on that for you. So kind of same question there. Are warranties enforceable? If something is warranted for 10 years and falls apart on the coast at 6, is the manufacturer off the hook by saying, well, it was the coast? Yeah, we kind of talked around that. Again, it depends on the warranty, how it's written, and you're looking at it up front. Some of the big reps that we talked to answering some of these questions, they said, no, 10 is 10. And unless there's some kind of coastal or salt laden air exclusion, like I talked about that metal siding. So, okay, so let's a little email feedback from a big supplier. We don't have exclusions, read the other guys and see if they do. So
Right.
pays to, work with top shelf products. So what rating of a window is recommended for residential units half a mile from Puget Sound shoreline for wind loads expected over a typical year? I think we talked a little bit about that in the thing. We like to see, PG or DP 35s to 45s, depending if you're out on that bluff or if you're back from the bluff behind a hill and, stuff like that. So,
Yeah, I mean, half mile from the sound, there's a lot of factors, so basically we have a whole, it's not as simple as that, like, oh, I'm right here because, topography matters, right? Are you on a hill? Are you on an escarpment? The surrounding buildings, right? So there's different exposure categories ranging from B all the way to D. So, aside from just the design wind prep speeds that we need to plug that number in, there's a lot of other little factors in there. So it'd be hard to just say, oh, PG 35 in that instance, but you know, uh
there's a calculation, there's a series of
yeah,
you know, height of building, exposure, all these types of things that we run for you. But you'll feel better if you see a 35, 40, 45, something like that on your window sticker. So
right.
just go to your windows and look for one of those stickers. And if you don't have stickers, that means your manufacturer refused to be a part of the big window manufacturer association. So that doesn't give me as much faith in their product. So anyway. Okay, next question. Is seismic stability something you look at when you do an inspection of the pillars in the water? So we're looking primarily at the pillars or the pilings, and we're seeing if they're corroded and if they're working well. Now, the earthquake and structural codes have evolved. Everything evolves with experience, and so the big highway collapse of 91 and the whatever big earthquakes of 97 changed a lot of our earthquake seismic rules. And so if your building was built before the 90s, you have an older code that didn't take seismic as seriously. And so seismic studies are, an additional, if you're concerned about it, and, it's one more service that you get to pay for, but if you're concerned about it, we'll go through that study with you. And we have done that. A lot of boards say, you know what, the building stood for this long, rated at rated at these conditions. As long as everything's performing well and in good shape, we'll take our chances. And so there's kind of you can do the study and we can help you with those upgrades, or just if we're just inspecting kind of the first level inspection, we're just looking for damage just to see if it's performing as intended. Would you add anything to that, James?
Yeah, I mean, primarily we're looking at gravity loads, right? Vertical loads, dead loads on a member. It's up to our licensed engineers' discretion to delve into the lateral weeds, so to speak. So seismic analysis and things like that. There are specific standards for seismic analysis: tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 analysis. Do we do tier 3 lateral analysis, J2? I would say no, but getting into that tier 1 level, throwing some seismic loads at cantilever column, configurations and things like that, we do. But yeah, that would be a better question probably for Stephen to answer with respects to seismic stability, if you want to get into that.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
We'll do an episode on earthquakes. So
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, next question was the Core 10 steel that was failing one of the beach applications? No, it was I forgot, a quarter mile off the beach. It was a ways off the beach, but you could see the bay right there, but it wasn't those big Pacific Ocean front surf spray ones. And you kind of call it protected Puget Sound, but it did not like the salt. And so that salt air, I don't know how much salt is in the air, but you can smell it when you're taking a walk down, and it just smells like beach. It smells like seawater. It smells like, and so you can feel it. You can see it on the cars, kind of the white dust, and it gets on your building. And that it's just the wrong application for that Corten steel to have its natural rusted look. Use that rust look over in Eastern Washington or dry, high desert, and you'll get the rusted looking farmhouse or, kind of winery or industrial building. That's really what it's intended for. Next question, is it better to have a diver inspect or a drone? Well, the drones are getting better and better. So you need the underwater drone, and you need a drone that can carry a little pick and kind of scrape at things. We can do some of that initial, let's just go down and take a look. And if we obviously can see big holes and things like that, that drone will tell us a lot for that initial inspection, the underwater drone. But ultimately, to have a diver go down, scrape away some of the sand and sediment around the base of the column to see if we can, base of the column or pier, see if we can see if there's a footing, see if there's some kind of already been a remediation for an overcladding of the original wood column, maybe where you can only see a steel column, but you can get your hands under there and feel there's something else. And so it's nice to have divers go down and take a peek and help you actually with the repairs. And so some of the divers that work on the piers and work on the shipyard type stuff are the same diver crews that work on the buildings and helping us restore the pilings there. Okay, any other questions? No, I don't think so. All right, good questions. And then, reminder, you can submit your questions all month long and we'll get those first in. So giveaways, James, you know the rules. The guest picks a number between 1 and 13. Whoever wins the bucket.
Man, I gotta go. I'm excited about this. Let's go lucky 13.
Lucky 13. Okay. So you are labeled in the Zoom thing as participants, and Carolyn and or Brooke will ping you and find your information and get that out in the mail to you. So let's see. So people who attend live qualify for the giveaways. We encourage everyone to sign up for the show. And that's one of the benefits. There's the bucket. Yeah, that's a better look at that. Don't get burned by building damage. Look at that sunscreen, J2 sunscreen. Okay, we have lots of free resources for boards and managers. Use the QR code or go to our website and or YouTube. Over 300 plus videos, and now we're on podcasts and YouTube Live and Zoom. So stream this webinar wherever you go. You can scan that again. This is a free show. It's educational content only. We're not giving you financial, legal, or medical advice. And so how you keep us going, how you fund our show is give us that 5-star rating that motivates us to produce more content and get it out there for people to help people. And like I said, we're live on YouTube. So get ready for that. So thanks, James, for being on the show again. Get in touch to talk to James about your Oregon buildings and about any kind of coastal buildings you'd have. James, do you have any goodbye message?
No, just don't email me tomorrow because I'm heading to the coast to do an investigation. So, yeah.
Don't lick the building salt.
No, yeah, exactly. No, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure, guys. Always fun. All
right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for attending. See you next month.
This podcast is part of J2's free live webinar, The Building Doctor Show. To attend the live show and ask your questions during the Q&A, visit www.j2consultants.com.